Hello everyone, and thanks for being here today. My name is Mairead Vaughan and I am a family celebrant with Enthias. I am fascinated by people and what makes them who they are. And I'm really inspired by people who are change makers. So what's a change maker, you might ask? Well, a change maker is someone who takes creative action to solve a social problem. Instead of complaining about a problem or just talking about it, they get up off their arse and they do something about it. And my guest today is the very definition of a change maker. My guest today is the founder of the Wexford Daisy chain of new friends. She is a recovering alcoholic, mother to 2 amazing daughters, and the holder of a first-class Bachelor of Arts degree in Early Childhood Studies. Elizabeth Bolger James, it's a pleasure to have you here in my humble abode today. Thank you for being here.
Oh, good afternoon, Mairead. I'm delighted to be here.
That's great. Thank you very much. So today, Liz, we're going to talk about a lot of topics. We're going to talk about death and loss, grief, courage, forgiveness. And I believe you've had a close encounter with a World War II bomb, but we're going to come to that later. So you've had quite a busy life, pretty fruitful life,
colourful life.
So as I was saying earlier, you have a qualification, a bachelor's degree in early childhood studies, and so maybe that's a good place to start. You know, your early childhood. You grew up in Wexford town or out in the countryside?
Yes, I grew up in Wexford town. It seems like a long time ago now, looking back. I was born in 1965, so it does feel like 100 years ago. But I still have very, very, good memories. And I just grew up in a family of 4. Dad was an engineer and Mum worked in the hospital. And I had 1 brother at the time. So, life was good. Very old-fashioned, regimental, very strict upbringing. Not like today where, you rear your kids up a little bit more empowering and, you give them a voice. Growing up, children were supposed to be seen and not heard. That's what we were always told. Mm-hmm.
So was your brother older or younger than you?
My brother was 5 years younger than me. He was. So,
yeah.
Eugene, everyone used to call him Stooge for some reason. So, yeah. And we grew up there in I think it was just a small estate. Everybody knew everybody. We were so carefree. Not many cars or bikes around, and lovely neighbours, lots of friends, great memories of always being outdoors.
Right, yeah. And did your mother work or was she a stay-at-home mum?
She worked. She did night duty. She wasn't a nurse, but she had worked since she was 16 years of age in the old Wexford Hospital, and she was a cleaner, and then she would be a companion for sick nuns and stuff like that. So she was always working, and if she wasn't in the hospital, she would be cleaning and cooking, because she would look after the old neighbours across the road from us, Sean and Tom, and give them the dinner every day and do their washing and stuff. So she was always on the go. Dad worked 5 days a week, as I said. He would have been more out on the roads with Telecom post and telegraphs, putting up the poles and surveying that and monitoring what was being done. So,
did you follow Wexford rugby or football, GAA or anything like that as a family?
No, but my granddad was on the Wexford hurling team, I think, and my mother was big into horses. She was actually a farmer, and she'd married a townie, a culture marrying a townie, and she turned into a townie very quick, but she loved going up to the RDS, to the horse shows, and Eddie Mackin was one of her favourites, and we used to have to go up every year for Dad. Dad would have been big into fishing and hunting, and even though he was a townie, he loved the country. They were so different in many ways.
And what was school like for you?
Primary school, I can still remember I started at 3 years of age. Now, can you imagine a child starting school at 3 years of age nowadays? That's the way it was. My primary school was really, really bad, and we only had nuns teaching us in the school, and we were hit with wooden rulers, and at the time I thought it was acceptable because that's the way it was, but as I get older I realise you don't beat kids. But when the worst part was when the wooden rulers disappeared and the metal rulers came out, and that's when it really started to hurt, for not doing your alphabet right, not doing joint writing, to a certain standard. And I believe today that I have rheumatism in my knuckles, and I believe it's got a lot to do with the nuns and the beatings that we were given.
There must have been a lot of fear then as a child when you're going into school every day.
Looking back, and even today, looking at the Catholic Church, the hierarchy, the power that they had over people many, many moons ago, priests and nuns, you don't question authority, not when you're in a school like that. What they do to you, you believe you deserve it. And if you went home and told your parents, especially my parents, that I had been hit with a ruler, I would get another beating. So you never said anything. As I said, children were to be seen and not heard, so you learn to always hide the physical and the emotional abuse. I was even told I would never accomplish anything in life, that I would be a failure. And I do believe your childhood really shapes you to who you are in life. I do believe that today. So
who told you that you would never amount to anything?
One of the nuns told me. She just didn't like me, because at home I was living a very, very strict life, and my dad would beat us if we'd done anything wrong. And in school, even as a young child, it was an escapism for me to go to primary school. I could kind of be myself, maybe be a bit loud at times, and that's why I was always getting the beatings and in trouble. And I also got the beatings at home for my younger brother. He was 5 years younger than me, and I always tried to protect him, and because I was the oldest I got blamed too, so that was tough.
So your dad had a problem with anger, and he lashed out a lot.
He had, and I've only found out recently. I asked his sister, why was Dad so angry? And she said, well, he had got most of the beatings in our family of 6 from his dad, because he had such a good bond with his own mother. His dad was very jealous of that, so anything that went wrong, he got blamed for it. So he carried that on into life, and he would sit in the sitting room in the dark. He would, if there was a full moon, my mum would say, oh my God, there's a full moon, Tommy's gonna be like an antichrist. And then he'd go off drinking 3 or 4 days. He'd come home from work with scratches on his face from fighting with workmates, employees and stuff like that. It was really, really bad, and there was always a stick in the corner or a belt for us to be reminded, you say something wrong or you took an extra biscuit or something, the beatings would come.
My gosh, even just something as simple as taking a biscuit, or maybe playing too loudly or something. Yeah,
and even today I can still hear my mother saying, wait till your father comes home. And that's really, I would never say that to my girls. I changed up my whole outlook on the parent. I broke that link, that chain. And I knew at a young age it was wrong.
Yeah.
And if your gut feeling is telling you something's wrong, then it's enough, I think.
Do you think your mother was afraid of your father?
Yeah, she got bed up. She'd black eyes and stuff. She'd sleep in her car. Especially when he was drinking, she'd hide in the far bedroom between the beds. She was beaten very, very badly, but she always protected him, always covered up for him. And unfortunately, that showed that when she did die, he came to live with me, and he said, Elizabeth, nobody called to my house anymore. His dad used to run everyone that came to the house. And I felt when he did move in with me, because he was terrified of living by himself, I felt this man has ruined my childhood. Now he's going to ruin my future. I had and that's when I started to have a few extra glasses of wine when he was living with me, and he did say, oh, you're drinking too much wine. And I remember saying to him, Dad, I learned from the best. So a lot of emotional stuff that you carry with you throughout life, but you can't live in the past. You can remember it. It can be part of you, but it doesn't define who you are today.
It's interesting that you actually, when he was on his own, he was widowed, he was at the end of his life, but you took him in after everything. He had meted out to you the fear you lived, the cloud that you had over you as a household, but you still took him in. That's incredible to me. Do you think that you forgave him, or what was it in you that decided to let him come live with you?
I pitied him.
Yeah.
I pitied him. He'd lost 7 stone. He was a diabetic. All he had was his little Jack Russell that Mum loved and he loved. They loved that little Jack Russell Susie more than they loved any of us. It was adored, like. And my brother and him, there was a barring order there. They're always fighting. So he just said, can I come and stay with you? And I said, okay. I didn't think twice about it. And put a hospital bed in the spare sitting room. I injected him every day. He was a diabetic. I looked after him and he changed. He was one of the nicest person that I had ever known of my dad. It was a totally different personality. He was at home with me. He'd sit in front of the fire. I'd say, Dad, what do you want for your dinner? Steak. I'd make steak for him. He was smiling. He was so content and so nice to me and all of that. But the damage had been done. I couldn't forget about my past, but I didn't bring it to the surface. I left it there, and I did start drinking a little bit. I was broken hearted when Mum died. She was like my sister, and she went from one day to another.
Do you think you got some of that strength from your mother? She must have been quite strong to put up
She
with a lot.
was really, but then she was very weak to stay in a relationship where there was nothing. She literally hated that man. And she would go out dancing, she'd go to her whist. She was the most popular person in Wexford town. She judged dog shows. Everybody loved my mother, everyone did. And it showed that even when she died, like, there was a huge funeral, but when my dad died, even some of my family members didn't even come to his funeral. Her sisters and brothers and cousins, they didn't come to his funeral.
So how long did your dad live with you at the end of his life?
He only lived 6 months, and then he went into hospital, and then he died of kidney failure.
Right.
So it would have been 10 months in total.
So isn't it amazing that, for someone who had so much aggression and anger inside him, that in the last 6 months he became the person that he was underneath all of that. Did he ever apologise to you for the life he gave you?
He didn't need to apologise. His actions were more than enough. He'd speak to the girls, my kids, and say, oh, now you behave yourself or I'll do this. And I remember my daughter turned around and says, Grandad, no, you won't. You're not talking to my mum now. I'll do what I want to do. And he says, okay. He'd never had anyone that has ever stood up to him. Only the one time when I was living in Holland that I got a call to say he was in a pub, insulted a man, and the man went home and got a hatchet and came in and hit my dad in the forehead. So he had a huge scar to remind us all of this hatchet that he'd been hit with. Dad went down home, got his rifle, and went up after the man with the rifle. So there was always drama going on. He was barred from 62 pubs in Wexford town. There's a lot.
It does, yeah.
But I still loved him because he couldn't help the way he was. He struggled, he suffered more than anybody would know. So
yeah, that's true. Well, luckily, you broke that cycle because you have 2 daughters that I know from the way you talk about them, you're so proud of them and they really are the apples of your eyes, and you're so proud of them, you adore them, and you have a really good, close relationship with your daughters.
Yes, I do. One was born on Christmas Day and the other was born on Christmas Eve 3 years later. So, as I say, they were the best Christmas presents I could ever ask for. My girls, I've heard people saying that you'd give your life for your children, and they know if anyone hurt them, I would believe me, there would be war. I am so protective over my girls, but they're strong, empowering women because I reared them up by myself. And they're really, they stand up for themselves, and they're well educated and driven, and they know what they want in life. Yeah, and that's such an accomplishment for me.
That's great. That's fantastic. So, you after school, did you go I know you went travelling when you were younger. Was that straight after school, or did you wait for a few years?
No, I waited for a few years. I went on my first holiday to Ibiza and with friends, and that was in 86. And I realised, gosh, there's a world outside Ireland, Wexford. So we decided, me and my friend, to move, to do something with our lives. And we were working in a fish factory at the time, made brilliant money. We were on piecework where the more you do, the more you get paid for it. We were getting £300-400 a week.
Where was that?
In Letts in Wexford. We made so much money. On a Saturday morning, I'd be in bed and a knock would come to the front door and be one of the local girls. Hey, can you tell Liz to come down? There's a ton of prawns after coming in. We need them done. And I'd go down on a Saturday, and we made so much money. And then I decided, let's go to the Netherlands.
Yeah.
And live our life.
Very good. Was it Amsterdam? Or?
Amsterdam, yeah. I worked in SmithKline Beecham. Is where I met my husband at the time. He was a laboratory technician, and I worked as a chambermaid then in the Sonesta Hotel. So,
And what was Amsterdam like?
For a virgin, excuse the expression, for a young Irish overweight girl going to a country like Holland and living in Amsterdam, it is shock to the system isn't a word, believe me. You've the red light district, you have sex museums, people are going around smoking pot. It's such a liberal country, but it's so safe. Anything you want, you can get there. And it was a bit of an eye-opener, and I loved it, absolutely loved it. Great memories.
Yeah. So what made you decide to move back to Ireland?
I decided to move back to Ireland because Mum and Dad were still alive, and my brother, and I thought it would be better upbringing for the girls.
Yeah.
Now I still question that, and they question it as well, because the two of them aren't living in Wexford. Soraya hated Wexford. As soon as she went to college, she moved to Dublin, and she's never lived here. And as I said, Stacey's in Australia at the moment. But I wanted them to have a very simple, warm, loving life. That's what I wanted in the country. So I decided, I remember saying to my ex-husband, husband he was at the time, it would be better life. So we built a beautiful house here in Wexford and planned it all and moved back.
And that's very common, really, isn't it? There's so many Irish people that love to emigrate and go away, and they have a great time living abroad, but sometimes when they become parents, there's something about becoming a parent that makes them think of their own childhood, and they want to recreate some of those elements from their own childhood for their own children. And it's a good advertisement for Ireland as a place to bring up children, I suppose, you know.
I agree to an extent, but it's also about family and friends, because home is where the heart is. And in the Netherlands, I had lots of friends there, and I had my ex-husband's family also. You're speaking a different language, Marie. It's not the same. They don't have the same values as what we would have in Ireland. And to come home and have my mum there to babysit, someone I could trust, have my friends that my girls could grow up with. That was really, really important, to have a strong community, a loving community, and safe community also.
Yeah, you've got that support network then. Yeah. So then yourself and your husband didn't stay together, but he's still in the girls' lives, and he's back living in Holland. How, divorce is very difficult to go through. I mean, how did it take you a while to reconcile it, or, how do you feel now, having loved and lost?
I never loved anyone as much as I loved my ex-husband. I absolutely adored him. And there still is a love there, but I love him, but I'm not in love with him. He's a brilliant dad. He's there for me if I need him. It happened. He had the affair, and he's still with the lady that he had the affair with 23 years ago. So he's spent more time with her than he's ever spent with me, and I respect that. They're happy and he's healthy. He's a big part of the girls' lives, but he's missed out so much on the girls, and he knows that. He's trying to make up to the girls now. He's trying to bring them here and there, and they're saying, Popsy, we're too old, we're not into that. He still feels that they're little kids, and that's sad. while I've been there for them, I've been there through every stage of them growing up so far. I was very hurt, very broken-hearted. But your heart don't heal, but you still carry on. You have plenty of... We all have big hearts, I hope. And all those little broken pieces, you know, they're just a small part of you. It doesn't define who you are today. Mm-hmm. I believe the universe made this happen for a reason, and I have to accept it. As I said, that's the past. It's my old house. You can go and visit there anytime you want, but I won't be there. So,
and so you lost your brother, your only sibling, and that was a really difficult time. Was that around how long ago was that?
It was after Dad had died. So Dad was only dead 2 or 3 years, and I had to settle the family home. Dad hadn't made a will. He was going to, but unfortunately got quite sick. So my parents were always afraid of my brother having money because of he was an AA, but then he turned to prescription drugs and other stuff. They were always afraid that if he got money he would die. So when Dad died, I sold a house within a year and a half, and my brother was dead 2 years later. He'd been given half the money, and he was dead. He was found, but I'm convinced he was murdered. But there was an inquest into it, but they just said he choked on his blood, but his nose was broken. He was black and blue. The place had been robbed. The back door had been smashed in. But fortunately, because he was into drugs and stuff, he was only a number. I don't believe he was looked at as a brother, a son, a human being. So.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like he had a lot of pain and a lot of demons in his life that he carried from childhood. Do you think that, your father being abusive and violent in the home must have had a huge effect on him?
Oh, that shaped him for the worst. It did. He could not let it go. Every relationship he had was with an older woman. He adored my mother, and my mother adored him, and she was very protective of him, and he was always looking for a mother figure, because he didn't have a dad figure. His dad was evil, and he could never get on with his dad. Was barring orders. There was fights. The house was broke up. My dad would sleep with a bar under his bed or a baseball bat, or my brother sleep with a knife under his pillow, and they had to kick him out. How my mother went through all of that, I don't know. She was a strong woman, but she was weak to stay in that environment. And I kept saying, Mum, leave him, you'll have a better life, please. So, but she couldn't. She just couldn't. She pitied my father, I think. So that was it, But it did eat at my brother, because he was the youngest, and having a father figure that was beaten in black and blue, and his mother and his sister, that's not a role model for anyone.
No. Was your brother angry with your mother for not leaving the family home?
Yeah, he was angry with her, but he loved her so much, but he was angry with her, and he would fight with my dad in front of my mother, blaming my dad for all the stress in the house while my mother was there. She was always involved, and really the anger seemed to be pointed at her as well many occasions. I was lucky. I said when I left to go to Holland, if I would have stayed, I probably would have ended up dead, or a drug addict, or an alcoholic like I am today, or my dad would have killed me maybe if I would have stood up to him. So that's why I left, and my mum begged me not to leave. And I remember the night I was leaving, all the neighbours were in the house. She was ironing my clothes, and she did everything for me. It was like a wake. Everyone was just mourning that I was leaving to go away to get a better life. But my mum couldn't see what I saw as a child and how damaged I was going to become.
Yeah. Sounds like your mother was just as much a victim as all of you. And, it was very difficult. That was the 60s, 70s, 80s in Ireland. Very difficult for a woman at the time to leave a marriage. Thank God it's easier now. I mean, divorce actually wasn't even legal for some of that time.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't. Sometimes today I think it's too easy to get up and walk away from relationships. I think it's really too easy. if it's not broken, you know what I mean, try and fix it rather than just get up and walk away. I think COVID had brought a lot of that fear inside of people, that they were at home, they couldn't leave their house, and they don't know who they're married to because they've always worked, and the children and this and that, and now they're looking at each other saying, we've got nothing in common.
Yeah.
You know, but on the other hand, it brought people closer.
Yeah. Well, they say nowadays we're into instant gratification, and, you know, we can't bear to be bored for 5 minutes, and maybe people have 5 minutes of boredom in a relationship and they think, oh my God, this isn't exciting enough for me like it was the first year we got together. I think I'll just dump my partner and then go for somebody else. Maybe you think there's a bit of that, that people aren't the opposite to what your mother was. They're thinking, oh, there's always something better out there for me.
I agree, Mairead. Because I've been single for a long time, and I'm actually in a relationship now, but I feel nowadays women, we know what we want. It's not that we're going to be second choice or have to stick in a situation like the old school going back years ago. You got married for life, this and that, the man went out to work, the mother stayed at home. Okay, that's changed. But it's like going into a supermarket nowadays, and you're not looking at the bottom shelf where all the cheap labels are. You're looking at the middle shelf where it's eye contact, where the brands are, and you're saying, I want this, I want that, and I want that in a relationship, in a person. That's how I see it. You know what you want in a person, and if you don't get that, then you'll move on to maybe Brown Thomas and go in there and say, okay, I'm going to go for someone classy. I'm going to go for the Jimmy Choo handbag. I'm going to go for that. I'm not going to go for the sale stuff. Women know what they want nowadays, and they don't always get what they want. But it's like me being on the dating site. I made it very clear, I don't want a man that has young kids, that he's got to put to college. I don't want a man that smokes. I don't want a man that needs drink to be around me. I don't want a man that is deep in debt. I know what I want, and I'm not going to be tied down and miss great opportunities in my life because a man has got 2 sons or 2 daughters to put through college. I've done that with my girls. I want a person that has the time for me. It's not about money, it's about time. That's what I want, quality time, do things together, and not have to look at the pennies. We've all been there. This is my time to, what would you say, get ready to retire in a little way. And that's what I want. I know what I want. So if you're not up to that standard, fair enough, I'll go and look elsewhere.
And for the lucky man, what does he get from Liz in return then?
Well, he'll get my time, he'll get my... I'm financially very comfortable. I'm not materialistic because I have every handbag and I've been there, I've done it. I want a very, very simple life. I love to cook. I'm a cheap date. I don't need to go to Michelin star restaurants, maybe once in the blue moon, but you know, a veggie burger and chips, and Liz is happy once they're nice. Very, very simple, and I care. I have that in me of caring for people. I love to look out for people and look after them, and I will protect them. I'll be their backbone. I will always stand up for them. That's a lot. Money can't buy that.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned COVID. A lot of people became very isolated and very lonely during COVID, and people might find themselves in, you know, maybe they weren't lonely when they were younger and they start to get older. Maybe they're single now, or their kids have been reared, or they've had to move town, and they find themselves, maybe they've had illness so they can't be involved in sports like they used to, and suddenly they're quite lonely. It's not something that people like to admit, you know. It's a difficult thing to say, and it's harder to make friends because community is a bit more fractured now, isn't it, from the way it was years ago. So you set up the Wexford Daisy chain of new friends. How did that come about?
It was quite simple, actually. Too simple. I'm still have to pinch myself to say, Liz, has this really happened? I noticed a lot of people were saying on Facebook, is there any groups I can join? I'm very lonely, I'm new to Wexford, or I'm feel very isolated. I live in the country. Nobody talks to me. I would love to maybe make new friends, go out for a coffee. And I was a little bit shocked because I'd done a bit of research to see was there many groups out there, and there was no groups at all around the Wexford area for people to meet rather than dating sites. And I just said, hey, the daisy chain is something that brought me back to my childhood, sitting in a field making daisy chains that can go on forever. I said, why don't I start up a daisy chain group where people can meet, put it together. I got loads of messages. Please, if you started, can I join? Done it on a Saturday night. Sunday morning I got up at 9 o'clock. My daughter had helped me because she's big in social media. And here there was 100 people after joining. I thought, oh, brilliant. We've 100 people now. Get that set up. They can go off and do their own thing and make friends and blah, blah, blah. At least I've helped somebody. Mm-hmm. But it grew and it grew. And it was a big part of me that felt very lonely because of my alcoholism and losing a lot of my friends. I did feel very lonely. I didn't feel isolated, but I felt very lonely. There was a void inside of me, and I thought, sure, it'd be nice to have a few new friends that maybe love animals and have the same interests as me. So, and that was one of the reasons. So, as I said, today it's 2,200 within a year members that I have. And as you well know, we've just had our coffee morning, the Gory Coffee Morning at Ashtown Hotel. Yesterday I had one in Wexford, a weekly one in Wexford. We have a book club, done the Single and Mingles night. Got lots of men and women together to meet, and a lot of friendships have come out of it. So I'm just literally flabbergasted that this has grown so much.
There's obviously a huge need for it. People need a reason, an excuse to meet up with people. And so if somebody wants to find it, they just go on Facebook, and if they Google Wexford Daisy Chain, they can join and then find out where the nearest group is, where the nearest meeting is.
Yeah, it's very simple. It's a closed group. It's very simple just to join. And I always say ask people to maybe introduce themselves a little bit, roughly the area where they're living, what their interests are, because then other people say, oh, I like knitting, or I like doing this. Maybe we can become friends and stuff like that. It's amazing. I smile 90% of the time. I do smile about, how wonderful people are getting on, and just to see people connecting and laughing, and even the older people. And at my group in Wexford now, they would be quite old. One is 85, and like the Friday morning, he might not see anybody for the whole weekend or the whole week. And to come Friday morning and laugh, he's got something to talk about. He's getting himself dressed up, putting on a bit of aftershave, smiling and all excited, seeing all the old lovely ladies. That is so amazing. It's
great to be around people, isn't it? That's the thing I missed most about with lockdown. Just being around other humans, having a chat. And, you don't know necessarily, you may not click with everybody there in the group, but you might get talking to somebody and they say they've an interest in something. You go, well, I have an interest in that too. Or why don't, sometimes people have local knowledge that you don't have. So you might have a partner that's interested in cycling, but they don't know how to get involved. And someone says, well, my partner is in that group. Why don't you get him to contact this? Or I'll pass on those details. Or you realise you're sitting beside somebody, you realise you live around the corner from each other, and you both like going walking at lunchtime, or things like that. That's how I have heard about you, through the Daisy Chain, and I'm new to Gorey Town, and I have no ties with Wexford whatsoever. So for me, it was a perfect way of getting to know people, and lovely to be around people, just having a chat, getting to know them. One of the girls was talking about she used to go Irish dancing. So I said, well, look, I go set dancing on Monday nights. Do you want to go? She said, I don't have a car. I said, we'll give you a lift. So we started giving her a lift now. So it's just from that one conversation, and it's like the daisy chain, the seed. You've planted the seeds, and it's up to, nature and nurture and the universe to let them grow. And I think it's wonderful.
Thank you, Mairead. I feel the daisy chain is up to the members themselves to, if you wanted to go to the cinema to see a movie coming up, post it up and say, would anybody like to come and see the movie? Does anybody want to go walk? And anybody fancy maybe meeting for a coffee? There's always going to be someone that's going to be interested. And, you know, and it's very important that we're human beings. We need to connect and socialise. We really do. Even animals need partners. And I don't want to go off track here, but we had also a group. I set up the group for Christmas because I was away. There was quite a few in the group that were going to be by themselves at Christmas. And I just said, listen, would anybody like to join this WhatsApp group, you know, and over Christmas you can chat to each other. And that was so lovely because a few of them did meet for Christmas breakfasts and a few other things, that they weren't alone the whole day. Also, we have the buddy check-in where I may, if anyone is interested, I'd have a group of people and maybe I'd put you with some other lady, and every morning just through Messenger, just check in and say, hey Mary, how are you doing today? By someone asking you how you're doing, they're thinking about you, you feel important, you feel, hey, that's so nice. It was done for me and I felt so warm inside. I said, you know what I'm going to do for the group? We don't need to live in a society where people are found deceased or missing for weeks on end. That should not happen. We should be living in a society where we care and love people and do our best to help each other. I'm not saying go for coffee every day and sit in people's sitting room and waste time. It's just about showing that you care. How are you doing today, Mary? How are you doing today, Mairead? How many people says that to us just to get an answer? And if someone didn't, luckily it hasn't happened, but if somebody didn't come back within the day or whatever, we can get the Gardaí to do a welfare check. And that's the way, that's what we need. Because people are not, communities, as you said, are fractured. People are not checking on their neighbours as they used to. We're living in a society as well where we're getting a lot of new people coming to our areas, and that's not going to be good for everybody. Not everybody is going to want that or like that. There could be language barriers, there could be culture barriers there. So people don't leave their key in the front door like they did many moons ago. People are maybe living a little bit more in fear. And we need to break that cycle. We need to build up communities where people feel welcome. There'll be more money brought into communities, there'll be more fundraising if communities work together.
Mm-hmm. So what's your plans for the future for the daisy chain?
I have, how long is a piece of string, right? So how long is a daisy chain?
As long as you want it to be.
Oh, if I had my way, I would have every inch of Ireland, there would be some type of daisy chain community group there, everywhere. I would love to focus on the youth because I'm a youth advocate and I've worked as a youth worker and stuff, and the young people nowadays, what they're going through, you know, is tough. So I would love to have a daisy chain youth group and LGBTI group as well. Yeah. Sorry, I'm not great
That's
with
okay. Oh, there's a lot of letters. We can say, I always say LGBTQI+.
All right, okay. Okay, yours is a bit longer than mine. Okay, thanks, Mairead. It's very, very hard, as I said, for young people and their identity as well. So everyone needs friends, and for me, the motto is really with the daisy chain is you connect first with like-minded people, and as you made it very clear, it was a good point. We're not going to get on with everybody. You start communicating then, and then hopefully you build friendships and take it from there, companionships, and take it from there very slowly. Then you go off and spread that. But that's not really happening because the group is growing every day and there's more and more people joining. And I try to promote in a holistic way in the group. I don't do ads. And I know I could make a lot of money with the daisy chain by doing ads. There's enough ads on Facebook and the television and radio. I want this to be, you know, about Reiki, about holistic therapy, about mindfulness, about connecting with yourself and self-care. That's what I find really, really, really important. Because you can't really, if you're happy mentally, everything else is going to fall into place.
Absolutely. And you are, as a person, you've been through an awful lot, and you're in such a good place mentally now because you've had your dark days. Have you got any advice out there for somebody who is going through a really bad time right now and maybe they're feeling lonely? Have you got any advice for them?
I guess, you know, the way I look at life first is my scars and my hurt and heartache is turned into wisdom. I'm more wise now. We can't dwell on the negative for too long because our bodies can't be negative and positive at the same time. It's either negative or you're either going to be positive. You know, the world, it's not a great place at the moment. Every time we look at social media, there's something after happening, you know, in regard to communities, crashes, you know, deaths, murders, everything. It seems to be more prominent now. But we have to turn off the social media, go for a walk, feel grounded, and take the time out for yourself. Just sit there and close your eyes and connect with your body again. You know, I've been through really, really, really bad patches, and I'll go to bed and I'll wake up in the morning and say, okay, Liz, today is a new day. I have to make the most of today and not dwell on yesterday. It's not beneficial to me and my health. I do believe as we get older, we have to change. When I was 18, I had a total different outlook on life, total different mindset. Now I'm nearly 60 years of age. Maybe I've got another 20 years left in me. I hope I do, or 30, whatever. But my mindset has changed, and I believe it's changed for the best. You were grown through your whole life, and I'm not saying physically, but emotionally, mentally. And you have to be able to have bad times in life to be able to appreciate the good times as well. So try not to dwell on those dark tunnels that you barely see a light at the end of it. There is a light there. If you want to see it, it's going to happen.
Do you think that people, when they're feeling really low, it's really hard for them to reach out and to say to somebody, I need help, and to admit that they're struggling?
Yes, I totally agree. And I done first aid mental health with adults, and I done first aid mental health with youths. I done that course. And the biggest message I got out of all the psychology and all of this and all of that is just by asking someone, hey, how are you feeling today? By just asking those simple questions, somebody could just look at you and say, I'm numb, I'm not feeling anything, I'm in pain, I can't get out of it. By just saying that, it's a release for them, and you could be there to maybe sit down and have a chat with them and just listen to them. Everyone needs to be listened to, Mairead. You know, we're human beings, we have our needs, and it's not about money. You know, by talking to someone and listening to them and empathising with them, that doesn't cost anything. And we need to show more compassion and empower people rather than depower people. And it's reality that someone is going to knock you down. Some people enjoy seeing people down on the ground, but that's a reflection of them and their insecurities, I think.
It's very difficult though, isn't it, to admit, you know, we have this exterior front that we portray to the world around us, and how are you? Grand, fine, oh yeah, grand. But we don't always say, well, actually, I'm really struggling today, or I'm in a really difficult relationship, or I absolutely hate my job, or whatever it is, or I'm struggling with addiction, I'm struggling with depression, I'm struggling with anxiety. We think, oh, I don't want to complain, nobody wants to hear complaint. But I think if we don't tell somebody how we're feeling and ask for help, then, I mean, that's the first step, really, asking for and admitting that you're struggling. No man is an island, no woman is an island. We need to put our hand up and say, I need help, because we can't do it on our own. And that's a great thing actually about AA, isn't it? Alcoholics Anonymous is a group where everybody's supporting each other. And you can go there and ask for help and tell your story and not feel like you're being judged because everybody's been in that situation themselves.
Yeah, I always say my meetings, I go to my tribe where I feel like I belong. Yeah, it's it's very helpful. I'll go tomorrow now to probably 2 AA meetings in the morning, and I take what I want out of the meetings. Now, Mairead, if people think going into an AA meeting is going to change your life for the best, that's not the case, because a lot of this stuff that you hear, a lot of people that's coming in has given up alcohol, that has cirrhosis of the liver or wet brain, or may have cancer of the liver because they've given up alcohol. It's not for the faint-hearted, and that's why a lot of people leave AA, because they can't cope with that. You're literally stripped back to the core of what happened to you growing up, then why did you drink, and how you are now. And the only thing I would always say is be honest. Don't sugarcoat anything, because you're really wasting your time and people can see right through you. And don't go in there and think, be smug and think, oh, I'm 6 years sober, oh, I'm amazing, this and that. This is a daily program. I'm an addict, I'm a recovering alcoholic. I could drink tomorrow, but if I don't work on myself, I will be drinking tomorrow. I have to let the stress go. I have to let things go over my head and not take things and remarks and stuff personally, because it will eat at me, and I will turn to a glass of wine, and at one glass of wine I won't stop. It will be a bottle, maybe 2 bottles, and in maybe 4 or 6 months time I'm dead, because the depression, the way the drink makes me feel, and I've been there before. So I can empathise with a lot of people that are going through depression, and it was a drink that made me depressed, and if I can do everything in life, travel, buy a car, get a dog, buy a goat, meet the man of my dreams, the one thing I can't do is drink. Well, come on, there's no question there. I don't want to drink. So, and it's a legal substance, but let's not go into that. And it damages so many families and people as well. I see it. I connect with someone in AA and then they're dead. So just because you give it up doesn't mean that your problems are all solved. There's so much mental problems there, and the body is being starved of so much as well. It's not everyone that gets the chance like I have. So.
You mentioned wet brain. I don't think I've heard that before.
Yeah, wet brain is when it's similar to when someone drinks a lot and their body is kind of lacking vitamins and minerals, and it's very similar to like MS. You get a kind of a shake like that, and it doesn't go. They call it wet brain. It's just a damage of alcohol going straight to the brain. So, and strange, I always said, I'm not an alcoholic. How could I be an alcoholic? You never see fat alcoholics. I just had that in my head. I thought an alcoholic was someone that was skin and bone that doesn't eat. Jesus, that's not true at all. I've learned so much.
Yeah. All shapes and sizes.
Yeah.
All walks of life.
Yes. No one's immune.
No. So as you know, I'm a celebrant, and as well as happy occasions like weddings and vow renewals and elopements and child naming ceremonies, I also do funerals. And so nobody likes to talk about their funeral and their death, but newsflash, we're all going to die. It's going to happen.
Hopefully not today.
I'm really sorry for bursting your bubble. Let's say your funeral is going to be, you're going to die an old woman, very old woman. You're going to be in your 90s at least. What kind of have you thought about what kind of funeral? Will it be in a church, or will it be a happy occasion? Will it be a sad occasion? What do you think you'd like your funeral
to be? It will be
like?
a very happy occasion if I'm in my 90s. Hold on. I want everyone to celebrate my life. And also, after speaking to you, something I'm going to consider as well. I don't want to go to a church. I'm not religious. I was brought up a Catholic. The girls were christened, made their communion and confirmation, but that was because we lived in a little village, and I wanted the girls to feel like they belonged. That was the only reason. But as I said, I would like to be brought to maybe a nice hotel and people can say their goodbyes or whatever, have a big party after me. But I've had this dream, and I want to travel, and I love animals. As I said, growing up, we always had German shepherds, and it was always pigeons and canaries and stuff, and I got so much love from animals growing up. It was unconditional that till this day I try to save. And I work for the Seal Sanctuary, and I'm foster, and if there's an injured dog on the road, Liz will pick it up. If a dog goes out to go for a wee, Liz picks it up and gets into trouble because sometimes that's someone's dog just gone out for a wee and Liz thinks it's a stray. So I have to be very, very careful. I just get myself into situations. How that Liz James is after picking up my poor dog like he was just out cocking his legs. So I need to be careful. But as I said, I do love animals. I would love to live in, I'd love to travel to South Africa. Go in a tent and where the lions are roaming free while they are at the moment. And I remember saying to the kids, I want to go to Indonesia, there's a lot of wild dogs there, and I remember saying to the kids, I have a feeling I might get attacked by animals and there'll be none of me to bury. I don't know, I had a dream about it. But you know what, you live life to the fullest, and as you said, we're all going to die, and every day that we wake up, Mairead, is a special day. And it's about making memories. When I did drink, it was more existing than living. Now I'm living and not just existing.
That's fantastic. That's lovely. I think that would be that's a good way of ending our podcast. But I still need to know what happened with the World War II bomb. You've had a really close encounter with a World War II bomb.
It was a 5 minutes of fame, actually, and it's not all great because I'm still a bit... I found the bomb at home. Dad had brought it home 30, 40 years ago. It was a World War...
Where did he get it?
On the side of the road when they were digging the poles for the post and telegraphs.
He actually dug it out of the...
Yeah, he'd always come home. He'd always come home with something. As someone said, most men come home with a wage at the end of the week, but your dad had to come home with his bomb. But it was actually huge. It had a lovely brass... It was like a bullet out of a machine gun. It was really big. It had a brass top and a brass bottom, and then the rest of it looked like it was steel or silver. And I found it the day I was handing the keys over to the auctioneer, and I rang the guards and said, listen, I have a World War II bomb up here. I'm handing the keys over. I don't know if it'd be good to have people coming into the house with the bomb here. And she said, sorry, I should have a bit confused now. So anyway, they came up to the gate. So I went into the garage, picked up the bomb and walked out to them with the bomb in my hand.
How big was it? Was it like...
No, like that.
Okay, no one can see your hands.
Sorry.
You know the dumbbells in the gym? You know those big dumbbells?
Yeah, it would have been, yeah.
That kind of size?
Yeah,
was
and
it
very heavy. Very heavy. So I went out to the gate to the lads, and I says, lads, I put it in the boot of the car, and they all ran back and says, no, don't touch it, don't. I says, but I used to play with that, throw it to me brother. Anyway, the guards came, and then the detectives came, and I lived on a street where there was houses on the far side. So I had a dog with me, and I went inside to finish me cleaning and do a few bits. And I went upstairs, and all I see is these neighbours running out of the houses with their cardigans and putting in their false teeth, and the guards running around knocking on all the doors. So we're evacuating the whole bloody area. Like, I said, what's the big deal? It's only a bomb. And that was fine anyway. They said, no, we have to get the bomb squad down from, I think it was Cork or Dublin. Then there was a helicopter above the house. Like,
no way.
I'm thinking, in the state of me, I know I had a Jennifer Lopez designer jacket and I had real Ugg boots on me, whatever. So that was fine. They said, you have to get out of the house and this and that. And I said, okay, whatever. Next minute, the radio rang me. I was on beat 102, 103. I don't know.
It didn't take long for the word to get round?
Says, tell us about the bomb. I says, well, I used to play with it with my brother and, this and that and whatever. That was fine. Got a call that evening. The bomb had been taken out, that had been dismantled and blown up and stuff like that. So then I got a call from, I think it was the Star newspaper. Can we do a bit of a write-up? I says, yeah, sure. And we want a photo. So brought him to the garage, stood where the bomb had been found. And I remember saying to the photographer, he was cranky because it was late at night, would you mind airbrushing me because like I have no makeup on? And I remember him saying, Mairead, Liz, I'm a photographer, not a miracle worker. And at that moment, he took a photograph. Well, you should have seen the owl wet rag face on me.
You look great. I think I saw it when I googled you.
No, that was good. He didn't airbrush me. I looked really moody. So the next morning, I live in the country. The local farmer rings me up and says, Liz, have you seen the paper? And I says, no. You need to go up to the local shop there now. There's a queue reading the paper. A little tiny shop in the village. I went up and it was, there she is, she's the bomb. She's the blonde bombshell. So I went and it was on the front page of the paper.
Oh my
I
God.
wanted to vote today, but I couldn't because there was a bomb in my garage. Page 1 and page 6. Oh my God.
Great headline.
Yeah, so that was my
hilarious.
5 minutes of fame. So I put an extra 25 grand on the sale of the house because it was, I thought because it was famous and there was all the guards was there and there was a bomb, but that didn't go.
It didn't work, did it not? No.
It's worth a try.
Well, the neighbours had a good crack out of it, didn't they?
Not really, because they were old.
Worried.
But you know what I was really thankful for? I did thank them. Is the hotel down the road, the Talbot, did put on refreshments for all the old ones, and I was so glad they didn't send me the bill. That's all I was worried about, because they were literally, there was a lot of old people that had to get out, like, and
Well, was your dad passed away at this point?
Yeah, he
so
was
he would have
gone.
had a good laugh out of that.
that
now,
was
wouldn't
Dad. As someone said, that's your dad. Always at the last moment, there will always be Tommy. Will always show his head, you know, to remind you, hey, I'm still around. Like, you know what I mean. So it was a great 5 minutes, and I'm still called a blonde bombshell.
Yeah.
I went out that night.
You are a blonde bombshell. Absolutely.
I don't know about that, but I went out that night to the pub and everyone said, oh my God, tell us the story. I felt so famous I did, so it was brilliant.
That's amazing. So you were known as the blonde bombshell, but maybe in the future now you'll be known for other things, such as the daisy chain. You're the founder of the Wexford Daisy Chain and New Friends, and maybe, you know, that's the start of a daisy chain in every county in Ireland.
Every country in the world, Mairead.
Okay, sorry. I'm aiming far too. You see, I don't have your level of ambition. You're right. What am I saying? I'm so colloquial and local.
It's
You're
okay.
right.
It's okay.
Every country in the world.
Yeah, we'll have a daisy chain.
This is where it all started.
This is where it all started. and I must say, I really enjoyed. This is my first podcast. real face-to-face podcast, and I really just want to thank you for listening to my story, and if it helps somebody, Mairead, that is brilliant. You know, and it's about caring and just showing the love, and as I said, money can't buy that. We need to start connecting more. We need to start communicating more. We need to build up communities and get back to our old ways.
We sure do, and I want to thank you so much for agreeing to do this podcast, because not only was it your first podcast, it was also my first podcast as well. So I really want to thank you for being here today, and I really want to thank you for setting up the daisy chain, because it's made a big impact in my life, and I really admire you for, as I said, getting up off your arse and seeing a problem that needed to be solved and doing something about it. So thank you, Liz.
Thanks so much, Mairead.
I've really enjoyed our chat.
Me too. Thank you.